What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today we have an absolute banger of a video for you guys. We're going to be making a Griselda type beat from scratch in Ableton. But before we jump into it, make sure to smash the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. What are you doing, fam? We're uploading videos like this every single week that you're not going to want to miss out on. Without any further ado, let's get right into it.
One time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like this, make it drop like one time like this.
Okay, so hopefully you've smashed the like button now so that other people can see this video as well. And if you haven't, hurry up and do that. But we're first going to jump in and just get a basic drum beat going, just so that we can kind of build the melody off of it. And I'm talking super basic. So what I'm going to do is pull open addictive drums, and we're just going to play a little drum pattern in. So if you have an instrument that has drum sounds in it already pre-built, load one of those bad boys up. Otherwise, if you have some more boom bappy old school drum sounds, you might want to go to that folder now. So let's do that really quick. All right, guys, we're going to be going for like a 75 BPM here, so fairly slower. Awesome, so now that we got some basic drums in there ready to go, let's go ahead and start building these melodies. So if you've listened to any Griselda beats, a lot of the times they just have some really simple melodies that are catchy and they have some crazy vibes to it. Like they either have some noise in the background, it almost like builds out a stream, it builds out like a scene, it almost gives you like a feel like you're in a certain scene in a movie. So we're going to try to replicate something like that. Alright, so we're going to use these bells from this contact bank here. This is the Lo-Fi Glow. It actually has some really cool gritty sounding sounds, I guess you would call it. So this is kind of what it sounds like. So let's get some down really quick. Okay guys, so what you might be noticing by now is that we're leaving everything off grid, right? So for this pattern that we just made with this melody, we have it off grid a little bit. With the drums that we made off the beginning, they're off grid a little bit. It gives it that little swag, that little vibe that gives that boom bap feel to these kind of beats. Also, playing with the different velocities is going to make these absolutely hit. Alright, so I was going through contact banks again, came across this Scarby Pianette, I believe it's called. It's not exactly a piano sound, it's a little more clean, a little more smooth. Give it a listen. Alright, so now we're going to go for sort of a pad sound, kind of to finish this off. So it's just going to be a pad that plays in the background very low, super simple melody, like 2 notes probably. And we're going to use Cloud Supply for that. This one's called Seahorse, sounds kind of interesting. Alright, here's what I came up with the pad. So for the pad, I just took those 2 notes that I ended up playing on the keyboard here, the E sharp and the C sharp, and I just layered them a couple times. So this one's just a higher layer octave, and these ones are closer together, and it just fills in the gaps. This is what it sounds like. And then it switches up here after 4 bars. And keep that in mind, because this is actually what we're going to follow for the bass line, is these bottom notes right here. Alright, so the last thing I did was find a texture. I think I found this. This is like a cymatics texture. It's like a staticky sound. I just want to kind of throw it in the background to make it sound more old school. And yeah, it's literally, you barely hear it at all. It just adds a little bit of texture to it. So now the melody's sounding like this. Alright, so now that I'm happy with the melody, we can move on to these drums. But what I'm going to do is those drums that we made at the beginning, I'm going to separate that kick and that snare out into 2 different tracks so we can process them differently and do what we need to with them. Probably pick different sounds for them as well. And then, yeah, so let's do that really quick. Okay, so we went ahead and found a better snare sound, and also I want to drag your attention to this because I actually use two different snare sounds here, but they're very similar, so it's going to kind of give it some differentiation. So this is what they sound like. Very, very minor differences, but it's going to add a cool feel to it. Okay, so the MIDI for the kick drum is almost identical to what I was using, what I played out before earlier. The only thing I did differently is I think I took a note here out at the end, just to kind of give it a little bit of space before that next note ends up coming in so we can hit even harder. But besides that, it's the same thing. I just picked out a better kick sounding sample. And these are both live drums. I'm gonna stick to more of live drums for this one. I actually found this really nice hi-hat sample. So listen to this. Sounds pretty good for a live hi-hat, in my opinion. So what I ended up doing is just did a really basic two-step pattern here. Messed with the velocities. They're all off the grid a little bit. And then I took out the notes where the snare was hitting. The last thing we got to add in here, I want to add in more of a live bass sort of a sound. So not at an 808, but you could definitely use an 808 if you would like, or if you have different 808 samples or bass samples, those would work as well. I'm going to use the Rickenbacker bass. It's a contact plugin. It comes with the bundle if you got the bundle, but it sounds really good. Sounds like a real live bass. And that's what I want for the feel of this beat. So here it is. It's super simple. And as you can see, we're following the bass notes of that pad as well. Starting on the E sharp, going to the C, and then just a couple little notes in between. Super, super basic, but let's take a listen to this. Boom, and there you have it, guys. So let's go ahead and do a quick mix down. Now there's a couple things I want to do for certain, and one of them is I want to do some sidechaining with the melodies and the kick as well. But I'm not just going to do a direct sidechain because I don't want the kick to sidechain do it multiple times in a row because the kick, there's a lot of kick drums in this pattern in particular. So what we're going to do instead is we're actually going to do some volume automation and just have it play like every 4th bar, every 8th bar, whatever sounds right. So we're going to use Shaper Box for that. This is what I ended up doing. So this is the volume shaper right here. I ended up picking like this first pattern that pops up and I just did a 70% mix. It's going to cut out ever so slightly. Let's listen to it. So every time it hits right there, you can hear it goes out completely. It's going to let the kick breathe with it. So let's hear the kick with it as well now. So definitely gives it some more feel, some more vibe to it, and that's exactly what we're going for those kind of beats. Also, I went kind of crazy with the bass. I made it sound a lot different. So this is what it sounded like originally. And with all the plugins I added, it sounds like this. So you may be saying, wow, that sounds way different and really fuzzy and gritty and retro. That sounds really cool. How did you do that? So let me show you the plugins that I used for this actually. The first thing I did is I took the R bass and I wanted to add a little more low end to it. You can see I kind of pushed it hard at the 40-ish range. I wanted to do that because I'm actually using a higher note than I usually would. The next thing I did, which is kind of like the secret sauce here, is I used this Guitar Rig 6. And this plugin right here called Dirt Bass GT gives it all that crazy sound, that crazy distortion that you hear. So that's really doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the distortion. And the last thing I did is I just added this compressor right here to kind of glue everything together, kind of settle it all down and finish it off. All right, so the only other stuff that I'm going to do now is some basic EQing, some transient design, maybe a little reverb, basic stuff here and there. I'm not going to bother you with it this time, but if you want to see a video where I break down how I mix my beats. I'm going to card one at the top of the video right now, so go ahead and watch that next so you can get a good idea of how I make all the drums sound perfect. It's really basic stuff, but it's really important that you do all those steps as well.